Russia raises the number of soldiers killed in a Ukrainian strike on New Year's Day to 89. Kyiv warns Moscow will retaliate. French bakers say they can no longer afford to fire up their ovens, as soaring energy bills and food price hikes start to take a toll on a national treasure. The US House of Representatives has been left in disarray, forced to adjourn after failing 3 times to elect a new speaker. Moscow is blaming soldiers' use of banned phones for allowing the enemy to locate the target in one of the bloodiest attacks in the nearly year-long war in Ukraine. Russia's defense ministry admits 89 of its soldiers died when Ukraine hit a college for conscripts in the occupied Donetsk area, shortly after midnight on New Year's Day. While the number of people killed is unverified, it's the largest death toll acknowledged by Russia in the war. Kyiv claims the figure is far higher. President Volodymyr Zelensky warns Russia will respond.
There is no
doubt that the current masters will throw everything they have left and everyone they can muster to turn the tide of the war. We must derail that Russian scenario, and we are getting ready for it. The terrorists must lose. Any attempt offensive they launch must fail.
Moscow has released these images of what it says are strikes in Kramatorsk. The ministry spokesperson says 120 Ukrainian soldiers were killed in the attack. 2 US-made multiple rocket launch systems were also destroyed. Recently described as 250 grams of magic and perfection by France's president, the baguette is also at risk from surging energy prices crippling Europe. Some bakers say they can no longer afford to fire up their ovens, and sharp hikes in the price of butter, flour and sugar are also taking a toll. The French government is rushing to save traditional bakeries from closing, with the economy minister announcing a survival package to help tens of thousands of bakers.
The 3 aids which the 33,000 bakers in France are currently entitled to are a financial aid window, a 20% discount with the shock absorber, and a deferral of payment of social security contributions and taxes.
The state will not let its bakers down. That's the message from politicians. Meanwhile, cutthroat competition from supermarkets means bakeries are unable to pass on major price increases to customers.
Blunt Rochester.
History has been made for the wrong reasons on Capitol Hill. The House of Representatives was adjourned without a speaker on Tuesday night, the first time since 1923 they had failed to choose a leader after a first-round vote. The start of a new Congress was supposed to be a victory lap for the Republican Party. Instead, its leader, Kevin McCarthy, failed 3 times in his bid to be elected.
No person having received the majority of the whole number of votes cast by surname, a speaker has not been elected.
McCarthy is still the leading candidate to replace Democrat Nancy Pelosi, who stood down in November. He says he is not giving up and will battle for as long as it takes to overcome a group of Trump-supporting hardliners who refuse to give him their votes.
We all came here to get things done.
The role of Speaker is one of the most important jobs in US politics. The House will keep voting until a candidate is elected. But after more than 5 hours of speeches and voting, members agreed to try again on Wednesday. The chamber cannot proceed with any other business until they have chosen a Speaker.
Avengers star Jeremy Renner has thanked fans for their support via the social media platform Instagram after a serious accident on New Year's Day near Lake Tahoe on the US state line between California and Nevada. Posting a selfie from his hospital bed, he said, "I'm too messed up now to type, but I send love to you all." The 51-year-old was airlifted to hospital after he was run over by his own snowplough. According to local police, it was 3 times the weight of a car. He was in a critical but stable condition and suffered blunt trauma to the chest and orthopaedic injuries. The largest ever recorded bird flu outbreak has been reported at a chicken farm 150 kilometres west of Prague in the Czech Republic. Up to 220,000 laying hens will have to be culled after tests confirmed an outbreak in a separate section of one of the 3 sheds. The farm is currently keeping 742,000 laying hens. Bird flu is pressuring already high food prices and triggering trade restrictions from countries that import poultry. A record number of chickens, turkeys and other birds have died in outbreaks in the US and Europe.
The humanitarian rescue ship Barents has arrived in the Italian harbour of Taranto with 85 migrants on board. The Doctor Without Borders boat carried out 2 rescues, violating a new Italian decree that orders ships to dock after each mission. Under the new rules, humanitarian rescue ships can't stay at sea to conduct multiple rescue operations. And if they do so, they risk a €50,000 fine and even the seizure of their ship.
Founder of the now bankrupt FTX cryptocurrency exchange, Sam Bankman-Fried, has pleaded not guilty to criminal charges at a court in New York. He's accused of illegally using millions of dollars from FTX customer deposits to support his Alameda research hedge fund, of buying real estate and of making other investments. Bankman-Fried was arrested last month in the Bahamas, where he lived and FTX was based. He was later extradited to the US and was freed on a €236 million bail package. He faces more than 100 years in prison if convicted.
But more importantly, the
last surviving astronaut from the first successful crewed space mission in NASA's Apollo program, Walter Cunningham, has died. He was aged 90. Cunningham was one of 3 astronauts aboard the 1968 Apollo 7 mission. It was an 11-day space flight that for the first time beamed live television broadcasts as they orbited Earth. It paved the way for the moon landing less than a year later. The Apollo 7 astronauts also won a special Emmy Award for their daily television reports, which helped educate Earthlings about spaceflight.
As rescue efforts continue, hope is fading for a 10-year-old boy trapped inside a hollow concrete pillar in Vietnam. Army engineers are trying to raise the concrete tube buried 35 meters in the ground at a construction site. The 10-year-old fell into the hole on Saturday. Officials suspect he has multiple injuries and say they don't know if he's still alive.
Getting a speeding ticket in Finland can either be very, very expensive or very cheap. There's no longer a fixed price. Instead, the country runs a day fine system.
Total depends on your monthly income, and you get a basic amount. If you are in a good job, you have a quite high incomes, ticket is higher.
The minimum is €6 per day fine, so it's always at least that, but it can go all the way to tens of thousands.
Income-based fines could help reduce the burden of criminal justice debt on the poor and more vulnerable.
This case would have been like with this year.
This photographer had to pay €594 last year when he was caught speeding. Today it would have been more than €2,000.
I was lucky because the last year was COVID and I didn't do any work because all my work just shut down, so I didn't make any money. So if it would have been this year, the situation would be different. And
Finland isn't the only country to apply the so-called progressive punishment. Switzerland uses a similar system and currently holds the world record for a speeding ticket. One motorist in 2010 was fined 3,600 Swiss francs per day for 300 days. That's more than €1 million in total.
Saudi Arabian club Al Nassr has unveiled its latest signing. Portuguese footballer Cristiano Ronaldo has agreed a 2.5-year contract with the club worth an estimated €200 million a year. 25,000 fans turn out to see the player walk out in his new kit. Ronaldo has won the league in England, Spain and Italy, as well as 5 Champions League titles, and the Euros with Portugal in 2016. The 37-year-old had his contract terminated with Manchester United after both parties fell out following a fiery interview Ronaldo gave, where he criticised the club and manager Erik ten Hag.